Hey guys, welcome to yet another edition of Enota Digital Storytime. I am so happy to be with you yet again, and let's dive right into Storytime. Here we go. All right, thank you, Mr. Nutsy. Well, guys, today we have a very special presentation. This is a story that is a modern folk tale. It's a folk tale that started in the 50s and 60s, and it grew out of another story, and it kind of became kind of like an urban legend and a folk tale across our nation that's changed in many different forms over the years. And I'm going to tell you one of those forms. It's a great story. It's a spooky story. But before we can do that, we got to play my favorite game. It's called Guess the Sound. Now, as you remember, we shouldn't yell the sound out. What you actually hear, you can yell the sound out because you're at home. So I want you to grab a friend, grab a sibling, grab a sister, a brother, a mother, anybody you got, grab an uncle, a friend, doesn't matter, and see if you can guess what this sound is. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whoa, what was that? Oh my goodness. Oh, let's hear it again. Wow, I'm not sure what that is. Well, you know what? There's only one way to find out. I want you to say out loud what you think it is. All right, now we're going to find out. Give me a drum roll. It is a zebra. That is the sound a zebra makes. Can you believe that? When I first heard that on National Geographic Kids, I couldn't believe it. But like I told you a second ago, we have a very special story today. This is called A Big Spooky House, and the author is Donna Washington, and it was illustrated by Jacqueline Rogers, which means she made the pictures. And these are some beautiful pictures in this story. Guys, I want you to pay attention to the pictures, but also I want you to see, maybe you've heard a story like this before. And maybe your uncle or a cousin or somebody told you a story like this, because this is a modern folktale, and I was super interested when I found that out. So let's read it. A Big Spooky House. Once there was a man. He was a big man. He was a strong man. Look at him. He's lifting up the railroad tracks. Oh my goodness. And he knew it. He went around picking fights with people just because he knew he would always win. And he never walked away from trouble because he figured he could always battle his way through it. O-M-G. Should we fight with people? No. That's not good. One day, the people of his village told him that the army needed volunteers. "Since you're a big, strong man," one of the ladies told him, "and you love to fight, you ought to see if you can fight in the army." He thought about that for a minute, and then he said, "Yeah!" And he put his belongings on his back and started out down the road. One of his neighbors hollered after him, "Hey, it's a long walk. Do you want me to give you a ride in my cart?" He was a big man. He was a strong man. He said, "I'll walk." He said it like that, quiet. He didn't talk a lot. That's like he's got that big, strong mystique. I'll walk. As he was going across the countryside, he saw an inn. An inn. I-N-N. What is that? That's a hotel, a place where people spend the night. The innkeeper said, "Hey, it's going to rain this evening. Why don't you stop and stay in my inn for the night? I'll give you a discount." He was a big man. He was a strong man. He said, "I don't care if I get wet." He walked until the sun went down, and as soon as the sky was dark, there was an incredible peal of thunder. Boom! The skies opened and rain fell down in sheets. It was raining so hard you couldn't even see in front of your hand in front of your face. That's how deep the rain got. It was like walking in an ocean. He was a big man. He was a strong man. He was a wet man, and he didn't like it one bit. Do you think maybe he should have stopped at the inn? That could have been better for him. Now this went on for an hour, and he was looking around trying to find someplace dry, when in a flash of lightning he saw a big spooky house up on a hill. Now most people would have stayed away from that house. It was dark and the gate was falling down. The windows were broken and the paint was peeling. There were holes in the roof and weeds growing up all around the yard. That's what my wife thinks my house looks like. Most people would have stayed away, but do you think he did? No, he didn't. He wasn't afraid. He was a big man. He was a strong man. He was a not gonna be scared by some big spooky house sitting up on a big spooky hill kind of man. He's not afraid of that house. He's gonna go in there and show the house that he's not scared of it. He went up to the door. When he reached out for the doorknob, reaching for it, the door opened all by itself. Now, most people would have left there and then, but not him. He was a big man. He was a strong man. He threw the door open and went right in like he owned the place. Outside, the place was falling apart, but inside, it was beautiful. He had never seen anything like it in all of his life. It was a real mansion. There was a red carpet on the floor leading down a long hallway, and even though the windows were dark outside, there were candles burning in all the candle holders. He looked around at the beautiful, dry, warm hallway and said, "Yeah, this is more like it." He followed the red carpet to the end of the hallway, and there was a huge wooden door. Look, you see it right there? It's a big door. He reached out to open it, but it opened all by itself. Now, most people might have been more than just a little bit frightened by this, but not him, because he was a big man. He was a strong man. He threw the door open and went right into that room. He wasn't afraid. Well, you're not going to believe this, kids, but there was a huge fire with crackling logs, and there was a huge stuffed chair facing the fire. In front of that chair was a table covered with lots of good things to eat. He looked around at everything and said, "Yeah, this house must have known I was coming." Now, some people would have been too terrified to eat, but not him. He was a big man. He was a strong man. He sat down and got to work. Now, if there's one thing this guy could do other than lift things heavy, he could eat. And, buddy, he leaned into it. Looked like Mr. Sanders at Ryan's. He had that table clear in no time. And when he finished, he sat back and put his feet up on a little stool. And when he opened his eyes, the table had, poof, disappeared. He looked around and said, "Yeah, I can get used to this. The self-cleaning house. I need to invent this. I'm going to figure this out and sell it on Amazon." Wow. Do you see his legs going through there? That's kind of funny. Wow. He fell asleep in front of that fire, fast asleep in that big, comfortable chair until the clock on the wall began to chime. Bong, 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 bong. It chimed 12 times. The man jumped up and said, What? Oh, it's just the clock." The door behind him opened, and in came a black cat. Its fur was matted and dirty. Its eyes were as red as the fire. It came across the floor, scraping its claws across the wood. Its voice was thin and squeaky when it meowed. It walked over to the fireplace, jumped into the middle of the flames, and picked up a flaming hot coal and started to lick it. Then it looked straight at the man and said in a slow, screechy voice, "Are you gonna be here when John gets here?" He was a big man. He was a strong man. He was not gonna be scared by any cat sitting in any fireplace licking any kind of coal man. He stared in the fireplace and said, "I'll be here when John gets here and past that." And he snapped his fingers to prove he didn't care if John came or not. And he sat back in his chair and he went back to sleep. Just as sound as a baby sleeping, just feeling good, leaning into that sleeping. Like Mr. Sanders after a revival. Bong! The clock struck 1. The man sat up. What? Oh, it's just the clock. The door behind him opened, and in came another black cat. Now this one was the size of a Doberman Pinscher dog. It had black matted fur and fiery red eyes just like the other one. Its voice was deep and snarly. It walked over to the fireplace, sat next to the other cat, picked up a log, bit off one end, and sat there crunching noisily. It looked out at the man and said in a slow, snarly voice, "Are you gonna be here when John gets here?" Whoa, would you be scared? I don't know, but this is a big, strong guy. He was a big man. He was a strong man. He was a worried man. But he never run away from anything in his life, and he wasn't about to start now. So he looked straight at that great big cat and said, "I'll be here when John gets here and past that." Then he snapped his fingers to prove he didn't care. He looked around at the shadows of the room, And then added, "And I'm not scared. I'm not scared of any of this stuff." He sat back in his chair. Truth to be told, it took him a long time to go back to sleep, but eventually he did. Whoa. Bong! Bong! The clock struck 2. The man sat up. What? What? Oh, it's just the clock. The door behind him opened, and in came another black cat. This one was the size of a large pony. Its hair was thick and matted with straw and sticks. Its eyes were bright red, and they were so big they gave off their own light. Its voice was deep, loud, and gravelly. It walked over to the fireplace. It ate up the other 2 cats, licked the fireplace clean, and then turned those glowing red eyes back towards that man. It opened its mouth to show 2 rows of long, needle-sharp teeth. Then it said to the man in a slow, deep, gravelly voice, "Are you gonna be here when John gets here?" Oh, children, would you want to stay with that big cat? He was a big man. He was a strong man. Children, he was a gone man. And that's the end of that story. And look, that cat wasn't mean. See, he's just sitting there. And the author's note says this is one of her favorite spooky stories. It's an oral tradition that's been making the rounds for many, many years. It's got other names too, called Martin's Coming or maybe Pancho Villa. It's a modern folktale, and you heard it here first. Well, guys, that's the end of that story. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great, great day. Bye.